Hey, welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. I'm Scott Linden, your host. Glad you could join me. I'm gazing out on a sunny, a winter wonderland of a tableau. Powdery snow, sunshine on top of that, glistening off, everything. Boy, I'm glad the season is over because I don't want to walk in that kind of stuff. But on the other hand, I regret the end of the season so much that we're going to be talking to a lot of you about how your seasons went. We'll recount some of the highs and lows and some of the fun and some of the great dog work, of course, some new places and some interesting bits of information. I'll be debriefing two of my good friends coming up this week on the podcast and more to come in the future. So stand by for some frank and open, fun discussions. That's not all, of course. Our Fix It segment, beaten cabin fever for both you and your dog. And I asked you about hunting two dogs at the same time. I'll get deep into your answers there. Again, some insights that you might find useful if you're kind of tempted to go down that road. Oh, it's all made possible by Pointer Shotguns, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, Trulock Choke Tubes, MidwayUSA.com, and Purina Pro Plan Sport Dog Food. Well, here, as well as trying to handle a dog who can't get enough work in this snow, it's almost a foot deep and makes things a little bit tough, but we'll be talking about that in the Fix It segment, so stand by. You, on the other hand, are contemplating many things. I don't know about you, but I'm already laying plans for next season in, a bunch of ways. We'll get into that deeper as we discuss with my two good friends over the course of the podcast. But I asked you in a social post a while back, and am intrigued by some of the answers that you gave that might be of value to others. The question basically asked what your feelings were on hunting two or more dogs at the same time. And wow, did it get a lot of responses. Thank you all. I can't cover everybody, but here are some representative answers that might give some food for thought to everybody else. Scott Bissiger says, first off, how many people are in your party and do they all get along? Right now, he's running 3 different dogs, 11, 3, and almost a year old. It's a challenge, but it will pay off. Now, Scott says something interesting that I never thought about. Our friends in the hound community are running up to 15 dogs at a time. Why can't we do something with a larger bunch of dogs? Yeah, I agree. And Scott, as you well know, it just requires more practice. Anybody have a problem with that? I didn't think so. Todd Schafel probably run 4 together once in a while. Woo! I remember the days when I was running Buddy and Manny together. And, they're big running wire hairs, so the challenge for me was keeping track of both of them. Luckily, I had a GPS collar, but, one's 400 yards up that hill and the other one's 400 yards the other way. Whew, that was a bit much for me. When I'm going out to relax, I don't know if that's exactly what I want, but more power to you, Todd. Joe Rundell says in the grouse woods, it's one at a time. I also like to run young dogs alone. Isn't that the truth? I've related to you all about Prez, my good friend's Dave's 10-month-old Brittany needed some solo work, and he's gotten it. And by the way, he's doing great. But letting them figure it out on their own leads to a better dog later on. They don't become a follower, Joe says, and it's absolutely true. So, good on you. Jack Hatley says, I run 2 at all times. Well, you've got the best of both worlds, Jake. One ranges out 100 and 150 yards and one hunts close. Jake reminds us all that he got lucky. Yeah, isn't that the truth? Wayne Whitehurst out in northeast North Carolina and his friend will hunt 3 dogs each. That's 3 plus 3 equals, 6 or 7, somewhere in there. 2 close, 1 ranging dog each. And they had a great time. Whew. Well, that's because, boy, I'll tell you, Wayne, good job. All dogs would back each other. And this is a great insight. Each dog had a special talent that made our hunting better. Yeah, I don't blame you for missing them all. Yep. And Travis Hampton, we've all been there, haven't we? I run 2 most of the time because I feel guilty leaving 1 in the truck. Yeah, been there, done that as well. In fact, we did that once. I'll tell you one funny story. I promise that'll be it. Dave and I were hunting back in the day when he had Labradors, and one time we wanted to just run one of my wires, and we left the Labrador in his truck inside one of those fold-up fabric crates. You know what I mean? And I love those, by the way. But so we're out, 300-400 yards into the hunt, and I turn around, and there's his dog sitting right next to me. I asked him if maybe he let that dog out when I wasn't looking. He said, no, I don't think so. We hunted the rest of that patch with the 2 dogs, got back and realized 1 toenail in 1 spot had caught in the right place and basically sliced an escape route out of that fabric crate. He jumped out the window and found us toot sweet. God love you, Labradors. You love your humans, don't you? Oh, my. Well, anyway, thanks for all your comments on that post and some useful insights there. And that all was brought to you by Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. Had a wonderful time at the SHOT Show with my friends from Mid-Valley Clays. We got together. We learned some things about some shotguns. We dined and drank and had just a good old time, and looking forward to being over there again and taking another lesson. I'm hearing from several of you who have taken lessons over there, and it has helped you immensely. On top of shooting lessons, high on our agenda this time of year, if you're shooting for a new shotgun, especially a sub-gauge gun, they've always got a bunch of them in stock. 20s, 28s, 410s, always in stock. Dave Fiedler is the gun guru over there. He knows guns and hunting, and he will help you choose the right type of gun and the right brand of gun, then ship it anywhere, anytime. And I got to tell you, I was at the veterinarian for a little eye issue with Flick last week. And the first thing, I think they all do it now, the first thing you do at the vet is put your dog on the scale. Flick, for the first time in a long time, came out of the season as good as he went into it. His weight was within a quarter pound coming out of the season as it was going into the season. And I attribute that to Purina Pro Plan Sport dog food. It's designed for hard-working dogs like ours with high protein, real meat as the first ingredient. It is 100% complete and balanced nutrition, and it works. Try it yourself and see what I mean. Learn more at ProPlansport.com. Well, it's been a long while since we talked, and I can't wait to get updated on what he's doing. This guy's, I think we started as social media friends, and I followed you, George, and you followed me a little bit in one way or another. Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast, George Gomez.
Thank you, Scott. Pleasure to be with you once again.
So, tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you possibly have some exciting changes coming, but whereabouts are you, and what are you generally doing in the way of dogs and hunting?
Yeah, thank you. Currently on the west side of Washington County. We're in Forest Grove currently, but we came to Hillsborough back in '95 from Southern California with a job transfer.
Yeah, well,
so we've got some residency here now.
Yeah, you do,
and then the next step, I think, as we discussed in the past, recently we're looking to go closer to you. We're going to be in Central Oregon, hopefully in the next 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, that'll get a little closer to the chuckers and the quail for you. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, how'd you get into the bird hunting world? I mean, I have my own funny story, and I can't wait to share it in a speech tomorrow night. But how about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thankful that I grew up in a family that my dad hunted and fished and loved the outdoors, and all his good friends did as well. And so as a youngster growing up and watching Kurt Gowdy and the American Sportsman and all the other stuff that's been on the TVs early on, I mean, that had a major influence on me. And didn't turn into a bird hunter really until later in high school. I was mostly just kind of deer hunting and doing small game and stuff like that with my father. But met a good friend in grade school and high school, and they were bird hunters, and then of course that took the switch on, and did a lot of that bird hunting as well, the upland game bird hunting down in Southern California.
Yeah.
And another common theme that we had with everybody is we were all involved or had German short-hair pointers at that time, even early on back in the late 60s, early 70s. So very familiar with that breed, and I still have that breed to this day.
Oh, that is great. And while you talk about it as starting later in life, I got nothing on you. I started at age 30.
Wow.
But so I got to make up for lost time. But I'm a little curious. I would say at some point today we'll talk about this a little bit more. I hunted a little bit of Southern California this winter, primarily to get out of the stuff I'm looking at through the window now. But down there, in those days down there, the hunting must have been way better than it is now. Don't give me any latitudes and longitudes, but where were you and where were you going hunting?
Oh my gosh. Well, I did listen to your podcast actually recently about your trip to Nevada and then down in Southern California. And, but yeah, we grew up in pretty much in LA County and hunted a lot of that northern LA County and across into Ventura County. And valley quail and mountain quail were our main birds that we pursued at that time. A little bit later, when I hooked up with some other classmates of mine that were really in the bird hunting stuff, we'd venture out into the Southern Sierras and we got into chucker, of course. And then just, the bird hunting became, an annual event, of course. And
well,
so that was a lot of fun. Everybody was hunting valley quail, and quite honestly, I started cutting my teeth on mountain quail down there. And,
wow.
And talking about an awesome bird, I mean, the king of quail, I think. They're just a spectacular, beautiful bird to hunt, and a little bit bigger, of course, a little bit more challenging. They'll rather run than fly, but it's an awesome bird, and it's certainly one I've bagged a few over the years.
This might be the first season where I did not shoot a mountain quail in a long time. I was just not in the right places at the right time. But that country up there, I love it. I used to visit that same country as a kid back in the day. I bet we didn't grow up too far from each other. But I'll call it the Gorman, Tehachapi, Metroplex. How's that, everybody? Right. There's some great country up there, and we've always had a good time. I'm glad to hear that. And
absolutely,
with luck, there's still some birds up there. I've heard some great reports in recent years, so good on it. So
yes, they have recovered pretty well actually. This past couple of years has been kind of a rebound for my buddies that I'm hearing from down there.
Great. Well, that's good to hear. So tell me, in a nutshell, how was your bird season?
Well, it was okay. I wish I would have had more time out in the field, pursuing the birds. I did spend a week in Montana in the middle of October. And I'll fill you in on that in a second. And then just locally here, I actually drew an archery deer tag. So that kind of took up a lot of my time in November. And so I hunted locally here in the Coast Range for some quail and mountain quail and grouse. Didn't bag any, saw a couple. But it wasn't, my main bird hunting this year was really in Montana. And, going to Montana, I've been hunting there since 1995 and, getting involved with the region and most of those BMAs and hunting some really awesome property. And it's such a nicer hunt walking those cut grain fields as opposed to those steep boulder mountain canyons after, chucker and other birds.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I finished the season hunting Hungarian partridge in some of the rolling hills that are, like you described, not quite as bad as some of the Chucker hills, and had a good time. But I'm also big on Montana. Without spilling the beans, generally whereabouts in the state were you?
Yeah, we've been hunting this area in Teton County and in central Montana as well, pretty much all over that region of the state. It's always been good. This year, I wanted to bring my two German Shorthairs, Lucy and Wilson. They had not been to Montana yet. All my other dogs have in the past. So I wanted to prioritize them and make sure that they got over there and got into some different species of birds, and they did great. We got into the sharptails a lot.
Good.
Probably as much sharptails as I've ever seen. We got into a few pheasants. I missed a couple long shots. They were flushing pretty wild. Saw a lot of hens. Didn't see that many roosters. And then we got into about 2 or 3 coveys of huns, and was able to bag a couple of that species. So, but the sharptails were awesome. That's the first time my dogs have been introduced to sharptails. So that was kind of a good experience.
You know, you're describing what I would call the polar opposite of most October Montana bird hunts. You had lots of good sharptail contact and very little pheasant contact, and the Sharpies seemed to cooperate a little bit better, it sounded like. Has that been your experience in the past, or was that kind of an anomaly?
We've always had pretty good luck with sharptails. Obviously, once the season opens, they opened up September 1st along with the hunt. So they've been pursued quite a bit. And some of them were flushing out of range and a little spooky, but, they cooperated after a while, and there wasn't anybody else in that BMA that I was hunting, so I had it all to myself.
Yeah, well, that helps a lot.
Oh, yeah, it was great. But, we were in a lot of sharptails every day, and it was just like overwhelming. I wish I had somebody with me. It was a solo hunt, really.
Oh, yeah.
And it would have been great to have a camera guy behind me, because there were some funny things that unfolded with those sharpies.
Well, I'm going to tell you a camera guy story in Montana on sharptails. So we're making a show. This is a few years back near Big Timber, if you know that country. Yeah. And one of my guys is Lynn Berlin. How you doing, Lynn, by the way? So we got behind everybody else, the other camera, the pro guide I was with, Al Gadori, and all the dogs. So, and don't ask me how, but that happens once in a while. So they're way up there. They're like 150 yards ahead of us, and we're kind of hustling to get back to them when Al's dogs go on point. And so I'm thinking, oh, great, we'll never get there in time. We don't have to worry about it because the birds already they got up. And they all flew away from Al and Tad, the other camera guy, except for one. He went over their heads and started gaining altitude, coming right for us, like one of those driven chutes in Great Britain.
Right.
So I turned to Lynn. I say, start rolling. And he's shooting over my right shoulder. So I turned to the camera. I said, watch this. And son of a gun, if that thing didn't come right over, I had all the time in the world, which is usually when I miss. Yeah. All the time in the world, I mount that gun, drop that bird. That bird lands at Lynn's feet. And I say all that because it'll never happen again. I got to live vicariously through that story for the rest of my hunting career.
Yeah.
But I'm intrigued. First off, BMA, Block Management Access. Don't you love that program?
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's been really successful for Montana and for bird hunters as well, and all kinds of hunters. Really, it's opened up to all types of hunting, big game and upland game.
Yeah, you're right. I never think about it that way, but I'll go on some of those blocks and realize, it's probably where the deer hunters go. I probably shouldn't be here. It's not really that good looking for me. But one thing that I've really been amazed with is why other states don't emulate that what would I call it, business model, because that's what it is.
Right. So, right. At least to the extent, of how Montana's doing it, it seems like a fairly simple straightforward process, and the landowners get a little benefit from it, and of course us hunters do as well. So it's been a successful program. We've had really good luck with it in the past.
Yeah, and I'll editorialize for a minute, because the reason it works so well for us on the consumer side is the landowner doesn't get paid unless we go and use his place. So if he has crappy habitat, nobody goes there, and he doesn't make any money. So there's an incentive there, a little bit more, capitalistic, if you will.
Yeah.
So tell me about your dogs. How'd they do?
Well, the first time on sharptails, and they didn't really go on point, a solid point. They were, they stopped, they got birdie, they were sniffing. But these birds were flushing quite a ways away, so they didn't really get a good close interaction with them initially. Yeah. As we continued hunting through the week, though, the weather changed a little bit. The birds were holding a little bit tighter. And then we got into some really great points and some great hunts. And one of them I have to share with you, it was a kind of a side positive to it. It was one of the last days that we were hunting there, and we had just flushed a big covey of Sharpies. And they kind of broke up into two different pieces. And I had my male Wilson go track the one covey that went to my right. And Lucy kind of hunts close to me, and she was with me, and I was kind of pursuing another small covey that was up ahead. And sure enough, the dogs were getting birdie. I could see Wilson tracking, slowing down. Lucy was up probably about 20 yards ahead of me. She locks up on point. I'm thinking, okay, good. I'm going to get some Sharpies out of this one. And so I keep on walking, and she's just solid on point. I keep on walking up to her. I get right up next to her, and I look in about 5 yards. And thankfully, she did not go in and flush or do anything. She held point perfectly, but it was a big old porcupine.
Oh, man.
and she handled it so well, and that was her first encounter. She's 5 years old now, and thankfully, we've never encountered a porcupine with her, but she handled it really well. She locked up on point. She didn't move in. I kept her on low, and she was great and took care of that situation, and then called her off, and we were able to go out and hunt and get a couple more sharptails after that.
Wow.
So that was a good little positive hunt right there for her and for me as well.
Oh, I'll say, the biggest porcupine I've ever seen was in Montana. We thought it was a bear cub.
That would be a big porcupine. Yeah.
So of course, Lynn Berlin, God bless you, Lynn, he got a great tight shot on it by going down into the gully and getting right up next to it until it got a little bit too perturbed with Lynn and started moving his way. I've never seen a guy climb a hill so fast with a camera on his shoulder.
No kidding.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and we've had dogs in the past that have gotten nailed by them. In fact, my first trip to Montana was with a female short hair named Dixie back in '95. And oh my gosh, she got nailed really bad. I mean, she was an aggressive, hard GSP to get after game wise. She was really gamey, and she got a mouthful and a tongue full, and it was brutal. And so it took a little bit to get her healed up and get those quills pulled out of her. But,
I bet.
Yeah, that's rattlesnakes and porcupines, worst enemies for the pointers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Dog, really.
I'm touching wood as we talk about this subject. Let's go back to birds. Those sharptail coveys you saw in, what I'll call the late sharptail season. Were they like the big coveys that we see in November, or were they kind of just still in their regular little groups?
No, initially the first couple of days, I ran into one spot just right off entering the BMA that had about 40, 50 birds in it. They flushed wild. It was really in some quartz cut stubble, so they didn't have a lot of cover, so they were flushing a little further out. And then we got into some of that, what I call CRP type of stuff, that natural cover that they have along with the cut meat. And then the heavier cover, they were holding tighter. And the last day that we got into them, I've been hunting the same spot, but only we're getting, maybe 5 to 10 birds getting up, and that's all I could find. But the wind came up, we circled back, the dogs got really birdie. So we made a big loop and worked the dogs into the wind. And sure enough, they got really birdie, and they locked up. And I was only expecting, that small covey that I had been seeing in there. Well, lo and behold, we had about 50, 60 birds get up and just flustered me to no end.
Yeah.
I kind of fell back. I took a wild, crazy miss, one shot, regrouped, and shot a double right after that.
On the same covey?
On the same covey.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it was great. The dogs were able to get each of their birds, and but that was just like, I mean, that was the scene where you needed a camera guy behind you, because I just expecting to see a small covey, and all of a sudden we get a huge covey that gets up, and they kind of break off a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and I'm just completely caught off guard, and of course missed the first shot. Thankfully, I had my semi-auto with me, and then regrouped and shot a double after that. So that worked out really well. But we were seeing pretty large coveys, 40, 50 birds.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was really fun.
Here's a lesson for all of us, and George just reiterated it for me. The last day of my season was on Hungarian partridge, and I was with my good friend Felton. Thanks, Felton, for taking me to that spot, by the way. And on one point, Flick's on point, and I'm trying to get down below him on the hill, and it was windy too. So I'm thinking, okay, those birds they're going to be way down that hill. And no, they weren't. They were on, by the way, this season, every time I found Huns, they were on the barest ground in amongst the thick stuff.
Really?
And so I was walking through this basically rocky soil with hardly any vegetation on it. And
right.
I'm enough colorblind that I won't see them on that stuff. They get up virtually in front of me, like a foot or two in front of me. And what I figured out finally is when they fluster me like that, I just fire at will the moment they get up. So you're missing birds at 4 feet.
Yeah.
Instead, take that moment. I'm thinking, okay, next time that happens, I'm really going to count to 3. Then I'm going to shoot. Maybe the pattern will be a foot across by then or something. But,
right. Well, that's happened to me so many times.
Yeah.
Walking this one big section of BMA, nothing getting up. We're kind of heading back towards the truck and just kind of casually walking back, and big old rooster gets up. The dog just barely went on a quick point, and this big old rooster flushes at about 10 yards and just caught, shot from the hip, missed. And by the time I regrouped and that bird was on its way and there's no out of range already. But
I love it.
It was crazy. We did get in a couple nice coveys of Huns, and the dogs did really well on those. That was a perfect situation. We had a nice breeze in front of us. We were hunting a sloped cut wheat field, and the dogs walked up nicely. And sure enough, they got up about 20, 30 yards maybe. I missed the first bird, and of course, and then after that, I shot a double. And so I thought I shot doubles on Sharpies and Huns, but I missed a bunch of other shots.
Oh man, if the season hadn't been closed, I could have shot a double on ringnecks on my last hunt. But but I see a pattern here. I'm loving what I'm hearing. Off mic, you're giving me the latitude and the longitude. Twice now you've talked about Sharpies in the wheat stubble.
Yeah.
I don't have enough experience on that kind of habitat, but is that generally where you're finding birds, or is it just pure luck this season?
It was really a combination of both, because a lot of this cut wheat field was next to some natural cover in these draws. So, I mean, it was kind of bordering a variety of little habitat along with the cut wheat. And the cut wheat was kind of actually standing a little taller than I've seen in the past, so that kind of helped in terms of cover. But yeah, there was that natural CRP type of cover close by as well. So they were probably feeding in there, and then they'd go back into the heavy cover when they needed to.
Yeah. And the other thing, again, that really struck me this season more than anything, both with Sharpies and Huns, was how how picky they'll be about that habitat, that the wild habitat, whether it's CRP or something else. If it's not quite the right height, or it's not quite the right coverage on the ground, there's no birds. You go over the next ridge, And it's slightly better. And we saw this on the last hunt of the last day, for example, on Huns. We hunted the high part of the ridge.
Yeah.
Nothing. And I'm looking, I'm thinking, well, maybe this was grazed a year or two ago. I'm not sure, but it's, it's ankle high, maybe a little higher than that. Pardon me. On the way back, we went down the slope another 100 yards, and all of a sudden I'm looking in there. The little seed heads are way up above the bunches of grass. The grass looks a little bit more robust, and sure enough, that's where all the birds were.
Yeah, yeah. And I've noticed that season to season, and on the year, how they rotate the crops and stuff, and how, some of these areas that we had hunted in the past in that BMA had produced some Huns and pheasants right there in the same area. But this year they had cut it and it was tilled, and so that that portion had changed a little bit. So obviously the birds move on and find a better cover.
Yeah,
but, Montana didn't disappoint. It was once again the pheasant numbers were a little bit down in that area. I saw a lot of hens. I didn't see a lot of roosters. I had a couple missed long shots. But primarily the Sharpies were the birds of the week there for sure.
So what are you going to do with your short hairs as a result of what you observed this season? You got a training plan, or do they need anything in particular that you need to work on?
Well, no, I think they handled really well. I stay on them every day. I try to exercise them and do some type of activity with these dogs every day. But going into the spring, I'll probably get involved with some type of the hunt test.
Yeah.
Either KC hunt test or the NAVDA stuff. Obviously being in Central Oregon, I'll be near Madras and Boyce Corral, so there'll be some horseback field trials there close by that I may help out with. But yeah, I just keep on, keeping them active with the birds and hunting scenarios, and just keeping them sharp throughout the year, and obviously keeping them fit as well.
And they both came out healthy, happy. Any major health issues during the season?
No, they came back really good. I think their paws, after a few days, were getting a little sore and stuff. They go barefoot. I keep them on rocks most of the time anyway here at home in their crate. In their dog kennel. Yeah. We have rocks in the backyard and stuff, so that keeps their paws tough and acclimated to that type of
nice,
hunt.
Yeah.
What I did, my female she's kind of a small dog, so she had a little bit of rashes underneath her chest and stuff. So I did have a nice Browning vest, upland game bird vest that fits around dogs. It's kind of a chest protector, really reasonable too. I think they're less than $40, but that really helped her a lot. And so that protected them, and I put one on my male Wilson as well.
Yeah.
And that helped them as well. So yeah, when you start hunting the heavier cover, especially over there, that sometimes you got to go to those vests to protect their chest and underneath. Yeah,
especially tall stubble and a short dog. If you think about it, that stubble is vicious.
Right.
Flick came through the season again, knocking wood, untouched by anything from porcupines or skunks to stobs and barbed wire. So I'm just grateful for that, among other things. I won't bore you with the details, but glad to hear that the chest protectors actually paid off for a dog. They can get a little hot. Was it cut so that it could be?
And that's a good point. The first few days of the season were really warm and unusually, above normal temps. By the end of the week, it definitely got colder. And so when I got the vest on them, they handled it really well. They didn't overheat with them or not.
Yeah.
So that was. So you got to keep that in mind. Not only the cover, but the temperatures out there as well.
You were out there in country that I just love, and I can't wait to get back to. I don't think I'll be there on homecoming weekend in that town that was so nice to me, but I'll be nearby. You learn stuff when you're out for that long, especially with two dogs. Twice as many opportunities to learn how to take care of your dog a little bit better. Is there anything you do on a trip like that for your dogs, whether it's diet or hydration or anything else that might help us?
Yeah, no, definitely hydration's important. Keep extra water bottles on my vest and stuff. And if I find a creek and, a nice fresh water source over there, they obviously go in naturally anyway because they love swimming and being in the water. So that helps when when you got some natural water sources and extra treats, they put a good effort in. So you want to keep some snacks and some protein tidbits and stuff like that. And so I give that to them, during a break or whatever. If I break for lunch or something, the dogs get a break as well and they get some treats. So
great.
And then just a good healthy portion. Don't want to feed them too much heavy before you go out. You feed them a little bit in the morning, and of course after you're done hunting, they get a little bit more in the evening.
Yeah, love it.
It's just, those kind of things really helps and keeps these dogs, on top of their game.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad to hear you had a good one. You all came back intact, and pardon the pun, in the dog world, we got to be careful how we use that term. But but glad you're all healthy and happy. And hey, next time we're both headed for Montana, let's talk in advance.
Absolutely.
All right. Hey, everybody, that's George Gomez. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast. George, enjoyed the heck out of it. Loving reliving my Montana trip through you. So thank you so much for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
Have a great winter. Bye-bye.
Yeah, stay warm.
All righty. Lots more to come after the break, including our Fix It segment when we maintain our sanity this winter, and our word of the week brought to us by Pointer Shotguns. This month's prize, Chad Hodge signature Upland Chokes from Trulock Chokes, $199 value. So stick around for all of that. Speaking of Trulock Chokes, here's a message from them. Trulockchokes.com, Trulock is how you spell that. Those Chad Hodge chokes are now in stock and ready to move out. If you want to simplify your life, it's a choice of two, a close and a distance shot. Real easy. If you got a double barrel or if you're shooting a single barrel, make the decision based on your conditions. But they're all available, as is all sorts of other interesting stuff. Accessories for your choke tubes, from wrenches to cases. Sign up for the emails at trulockchokes.com. You'll be notified before everybody else on sales and other promotions. trulockchokes.com. All right, time for our Fur Feathers Friends Word of the Week. Yeah, get all the details at furfeathersfriends.com. The grand prize, a 4-pack of Pointer shotguns. Your choice, over and unders or side-by-sides. They are beautiful. And believe me, who couldn't use a couple, 4 more shotguns? Yeah, and as I said, this month's prize in the Word of the Week version is a set of Chad Hodge signature Upland Chokes. This week, the Word of the Week is, drum roll please, Dratar. Yeah, don't worry about the spelling. Just put Dratar in the form at the bottom of the page at furfeathersfriends.com. Good luck to you. Lots of fun so far, and hearing lots of great comments from folks on who they're going to bring on their next hunting trip. That's furfeathersfriends.com. Well, it's been way too long since I've caught up with him. I'm glad to do it. And you are the beneficiaries, dear listeners, because this guy knows his stuff. Rashawn Gordon is let's just call him a really avid bird dog, bird hunting guy. He's going to tell you more about that. Rashawn, welcome back to the Upland Nation podcast.
Thank you, Scott. I thank you for having me here today.
Well, I learned so much the last time we talked, and I am a little bit embarrassed. We don't get to talk as often as we could, but here we are, so let's get caught up. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Many of the listeners may have recognized your name in one way or another, but give us a little bit of your background.
Well, grew up in Southern California. My father was a avid outdoorsman, and he passed that love of hunting on to me. And we did a lot of bird hunting, had bird dogs, and today, I make a living off of raising and training bird dogs and guiding for upland game. And that's pretty much what I do.
Well, and of course, everybody is now immediately jealous. But, you've also got one thing going for you that I wish I had going for you. Right now, you're probably standing outside amongst your dogs in shirt sleeves when we're all freezing.
Yesterday was 91 degrees here. We got a little bit of a hot streak coming.
Yeah.
And today, right now, it's probably about 84. It is absolutely gorgeous. And I am out here sitting with one of my dogs, actually, and just enjoying the beautiful day.
Well, lucky you, and unlucky us, at least most of us. Put us on the map somewhere. About where are you down there?
I am in Yuma, close to Yuma, Arizona. I live in a little city called Welton. And, of course, people who are upland hunters know Yuma as the capital of dove hunting in the United States.
Yeah.
Phenomenal dove hunting.
Yeah, I spent a week there one night on the way to Ajo, which is really just a big hole in the ground in the middle of Arizona. But maybe you know that, Rashawn.
No, I haven't been there.
Oh, don't go. But
Yuma's probably not much better, but at least we have birds.
Yeah, you do, and it is a gateway to so many other things as well. So love that country down there, and just a little bit envious right now. Tell us about the premise of this whole thing for a while here is we're talking to people about how their bird seasons went. So give me the upshot. How was your bird hunting season?
Well, personally, I had a good season. It could have been better, but I ended up getting some health problems, and that prevented me from doing a lot more hunting than I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But the bird populations here were off the chart. This is, I don't know if this was the best year or the second best year I've experienced since I've been down here. I can just say that there were birds everywhere. We had gotten winter rains, the season before, which promoted their population growth. And it was just amazing. People shot limits at birds all the way to the very end of the season. And it wasn't uncommon to go out and have 10, 12 covey days and just see the coveys about 35 birds up to 100 birds. It was incredible.
Wow. And down there, are we talking primarily Gambel's quail?
Where I live at, it's all Gambel's quail.
Okay. All right. Well, take me to school a little bit on those because I've had enough experience to know that I want to learn more. What kind of habitat are you finding Gambel's quail in?
Well, out here it's pretty varied. We have areas that are very close to agriculture, alfalfa fields, wheat fields, and there'll be little strips of desert. They'll be there. We also have strips along the Gila River. There's a lot of quail there, but the problem with that is they get in the river bottom, and the brush is so thick, they're safe.
Yeah.
Nothing can get through there. You need a flamethrower.
Yeah.
And then we just have the regular desert, and there's kind of sparse vegetation. That's an area that's very difficult because there's no cover there to actually hold the birds. The river bottom, you got too much cover, and the desert, you don't have enough.
And that's been my experience with Gambel's is that if there's bare ground, they're going to run away before you even know they are there. Is that yours as well?
That is exactly how it is. I probably shouldn't say this, but there is a technique that a person can use to get them to hold better. You've got to get them broke up.
Yeah.
And use a hawk call.
Tell me about
that. Does help.
I used to carry one. I never knew how to use it. We used to use it for chucker hunting once in a while. But go ahead and take us to school on that. What do you mean use a hawk call?
Okay, my favorite thing to do when I see them, people think when you see the covey, you're going to go after them and catch up to them. I don't know how people figure that out because You can't outrun a Gambel squirrel. But you got to get them to fly. When they lock their wings, blow that hawk call 2 times. Mark where the bird goes. When you figure you're about halfway to where they went down at, blow it a couple more times in. A hawk is a quail's biggest fear.
Yeah.
And when they're caught on that open ground, they're very visible to a bird in the sky. So their best defense is to break off and hide. And that's where a good bird dog comes in handy. Because these things can hide in nothing. I've seen them just on bare ground, squeezed up next to a rock, and you couldn't tell them.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the dog that pointed them, you would never know they were there. They just looked like they came out of the ground.
We found one in a hole at the base of a cactus once.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
I'm glad to hear we're not using the hawk call until the birds are actually flying. That is news to me.
Correct, and like I said, you wait till they stop pumping their wings.
Uh-huh.
So that way you make sure that they hear that scream.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard a quail or any upland bird take off. It's very loud.
Of course.
So you wait for them to stop that pumping and then hit them with that hawk call 2 times because you don't want to overdo it. You want to make it to sound natural.
Yeah.
And usually a hawk lets off 1 or 2 blasts.
Yep.
So you want to be just like that hawk.
Think like a hawk.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Yep. Think like a hawk.
Love it. Paint a picture of that desert community out there, the environment out there. What is growing and what is on the ground?
We have a lot of catclaw, unfortunately, which is it's a shrub that will literally rip the shirt right off of you.
Wow.
We do have some desert sage, and we've got some sort of grass. I'm not sure what it is. It gets golden like cheatgrass in Chucker country, but it's not cheatgrass.
Yeah.
And then I forgot the name of it. I think it's like a sweet broom type of a plant. Kind of looks like sagebrush, but it's not. We have a lot of that.
Okay.
And that's good. That's good habitat for Gambel squirrel. And if you find it in areas where it's thick, they hold good in it.
Yeah. And most of the ground is really bare, though, isn't it?
It's very bare.
Yeah.
You can have 200 yards visibility on the ground most places.
Okay.
You'll see the birds, getting out in front of you on the ground, running 100 yards all the time.
We had that experience on a hunt once, and what we finally figured out doing, we didn't even think about a hawk call. Thank you very much. We split up 2 and 2, and we went in a big kind of a pincher movement where we thought the birds were, and we squeezed them down from 2 sides and got some pretty good dog work after that. But you're just, throwing darts at the wall, not even knowing if there's a target in there. But it's better than nothing.
Yeah, Gambel's quail don't leave you with a lot of options. And I've hunted a lot of upland birds. People think the chucker's the greatest challenge. And for me, the challenge in chucker hunting is the terrain they live in. It's very steep, very rugged. The rocks tear up the dog's feet. But the bird itself, and a chucker's a runner. But if you give a chucker a chance, they will hold. The covey will hold. Gambel's quail hate holding. And everything in Gambel's quail country is unfriendly. It's going to bite, sting you, or just tear you up, make you sick. And you got to run constantly. I mean, it's amazing. And if you get a dog that can consistently hold and point Gambel's quail, they'll pretty much hunt anything in this country.
Yeah, they are very jumpy birds, and part of that is their nature. Part of it is they can see, like you said, if we can see them at 200 yards, they can see us at 300 yards.
Yes, exactly.
Well, how do you prepare a dog for that? And I mean everything from training to taking care of him on a warm afternoon. What do you do with your dogs to get them to excel at Gambel's quail hunting?
Well, one thing you hear a lot of trainers talk about is you don't want your dog sight pointing.
Okay.
Okay, right? Well, a lot of times in Gambel's country, dogs actually see the birds a lot.
Yeah.
And with some dogs, that's a problem. They see the bird and they instantly want to break towards the bird.
Yeah.
Because now they can see it running and they lose control. So we actually do a lot of training with exposed birds.
Yeah.
You know, we still focus on scent pointing, but we put the dogs in a lot of situations in training where the birds are in plain sight.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we know they're going to encounter that in the field.
Hey, Rashawn Gordon, give me a lesson in that, because I'm big on that too. That is another problem with chuckers in many cases. And so
Yes.
we're always trying to do that. But give me some of the mechanics of that. Are you putting the bird in something so that it stays still till you get close and then letting it out? Or tell me how you do that.
Actually, what we do is we'll find a location and we tether the bird on a long piece of cord.
Yeah.
And we try to approach the bird, you know, and we make a lot of noise. The dogs are out moving. So the bird is going to walk around. Or sometimes they'll just fly up and then run to fly to the end of the cord and they'll hit the ground. Well, the dog sees it.
Yeah.
And then that's when we, make the dog whoa.
Yeah.
And then go in and work the bird up.
Got it.
And it works. It works.
Yeah, in other parts of the country, there are what's called pigeon poles, or we'll card a bird, but that's to keep them from flying too far. But a pole will keep them generally on the ground after they launch.
Right.
Dog on a check cord for a while, I would assume.
Yes, exactly.
And just
got to take it slow.
Yeah.
And once they get really good on the check cord, then you can take them off. And do the same thing. Because like I said, when they see a bird, when you're actually hunting, usually they see more than one bird, what makes it even worse.
Yeah.
Because, you got 30 Gambel's quail on the ground and going every which way. It's a lot for a dog. That's a lot of pressure. People don't realize that.
Yeah. You think about it, and we're playing with that. I'm going to talk later in another podcast about what you could even do in the house with a dog to get them slightly more steady, and that's a part of it. Well, thanks for the lesson, because I'm looking at the usual spot where the valley quail visit our yard right now, and we can do that a little bit just behind the place here on the valley quail, and that'll be helpful. Let's talk about your season again just for a minute. I know it was abbreviated, but in that, all your dogs, all your hunting, all your friends hunting, what do you think was the high point for you?
Right at the last day of the season, I went out and I took a young dog that I'd been neglected. I hadn't did the work that I should have put into her.
Yeah.
And she has amazing abilities. And I took her out and we got into a small covey of Gambel's quail. And she locked on point. I mean, perfect. And I knew the birds were going to be around that area. And I made the mistake. I thought they were going to break to the left. And when they came out, they actually broke to the right and flew across a big open alfalfa field, which really surprised me. But the problem was we have these bee structures that the guys who set the hives out.
Oh, yeah.
They're made of wood. So when the birds came out, they came out right by that bee structure, and I was blinded by that for a second. And then when I seen the birds, they were too far to shoot. But I was just happy that my dog's first encounter with Gambel's quail, she did her job.
Nice.
So that was the highlight of my whole hunting season was right there.
I love it. I'll never forget on a TV shoot coming around a bend, and at the end of the little point are 30 beehives. And we just gave it a good wide berth and stayed the heck away from all of that. Is that really an issue out there for you guys as well? I mean, are you concerned about getting a bee sting on a dog or anything?
Well, early season, we have a lot of the hives. And then as it gets later and the agriculture's gone, the hives are removed.
Yeah, they're coming up somewhere else. Yeah.
Right. So when I was out there, it wasn't an issue. a few years ago, I was guiding a veterinarian, and he had 2 wire hairs, and his dogs got way too close to the beehives.
Yikes.
And the bees went into protection mode. And they started saying, I really didn't think that the wire hairs would really be that affected by the bee, because they got a big, thick, denser coat. And they were, and had to hurry up and get them pulled out of there, take a few bee stings. But they were fine. And the guy had some like Benadryl.
Yeah.
He gave the dogs instantly, and they were good to hunt again, you know?
Whew. Yeah. Had that happen once on a chucker hunt. That's enough for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, you are guiding out there as well, and that's its own challenge in many ways. But you see things that clients do, or you ask clients to do certain things that will help them, well, whether it's stay safe or shoot better or whatever. What are some of the things that keep coming back when you're guiding clients out there? What do you want them to do, and what should we do more of?
One, pay attention to what the guide says. I mean, because we're the guy that are out here, do the scouting, know where the birds are, and if we work coveys, you know, that we're familiar with, we know where they're going to be once they're busted up.
Yeah.
You know, I have a few of my friends that I guide with, and they had a couple of clients, and they were trying to tell these guys to work this area, you know, that they needed to split up, and they didn't get it. They stayed too close together, and when the birds came up, neither one of the guys could get a shot, because if they were too close. If they'd have been spread out and where they were told to go, they would have had a great shoot.
You know,
so
yeah.
You got to pay attention, because, like I said, the guide knows the area. You know, the client doesn't, so they got to pay attention to the guide.
Every time I miss, I think about what amounts to what you just described. Gosh dang it, if only we'd been spread out a little bit more. You'd think as often as I miss, I would have learned by now. But but it's absolutely true. And I'm glad to hear a pro really say that for the first time. We don't need to both walk up shoulder to shoulder. There's just too many restrictions when you're that close together, especially if there's a dog in between or there's a guide behind you getting ready to duck. I wish more of us would remember that more times, but thanks for the tip. How about gear? When you're out there, especially in the desert, is there anything you bring that we don't bring?
Well, hopefully you would bring a lot of water. And the way we hunt here, like in a good season, we don't believe in putting a lot of pressure on a covey.
Yeah.
So we'll jump a covey, and we might hunt them for 10 or 15 minutes, and then we're moving to the next covey.
Yeah.
So we keep it to where the clients are close to the vehicles, and they get lots of action, and we travel. But you need lightweight boots. You know, heavy chucker boots don't do good out here.
Yeah.
They're hot. They're going to be very uncomfortable, and it just irritates you. So you want lightweight boots. I recommend either, you know, the old military style belt canteens.
Yeah.
I like those. You know, they're kind of old and outdated, but they ride on your hip. You don't got to give up room in your vest for a water bottle.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But water is very essential. Sunglasses.
Yeah.
Because the sun can be brutal.
Yeah.
And a hat. And of course, lots of ammunition.
Yeah, that's why you don't want any water taking up room in your vest, I guess.
Exactly. And for your birds, too, you know?
Yeah, well, I don't need to worry about that. Okay, so your season's over, you're looking back on it, you're thinking, okay, and maybe it's that young dog you had on the last day, but maybe it's another dog. What is something that what you saw during the season and you said, gosh dang it, during the off season, I want to work on this with that dog?
My biggest thing is recall.
Yeah, really?
I'm a big stickler. Oh yeah, and my dogs have a great recall.
Uh-huh.
And when I tell my clients, when you get your dog back, your dog's gonna have 100% recall, because that's something that it could be a life saving ordeal for the dog.
Yeah.
So that's one reason I'm a big stickler on that. But the other thing is too, a lot of times when you're out here in this country and your dog's working doing its thing, you happen to just glance off to your left and you see a covey of quail trying to ghost out on that side. Now you need your buddy, right?
Yeah.
So you better come when you call him.
Yeah. So most of us would probably admit that our dogs are great at recall 90% of the time. How do we get them to 95%?
We start out with a check cord and a training collar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There are some people call them a choke chain, but the old training collar, and we put them on there, and we start out in the whoa position, walk in front to the end of the check cord, and then call the dog. And when the dog doesn't want to, put a pop, and then just basically reel them in. Once you got them to that point, and then you introduce them to the e-collar, do the same exercise but use the collar, go out and call the dog, encourage the dog. If he doesn't move, I give the tone first.
Okay.
And then, give him a little nick, and then praise him. When he starts to move, when you nick him, praise him, call him, get him to you, and make it a happy experience. So that way he knows or she knows that, hey, this was what he wanted. And just do that repetitively. And if you're out in the field, I don't care if the dog's chasing a rabbit. I had one day I was with a buddy and I didn't have an e-collar on my dog. And he was wanting to get pictures of his dogs running a rabbit. And I laughed. I go, well, that's not going to happen. I go, my dog will not chase a rabbit at all, because I had a really good trash broke. So we hear the dogs hooping and hollering, and I see the rabbit, and guess who's leading the pack? My perfect dog. And I don't have an e-collar on her. And so they come blaring past us. My buddy's got his camera. He's taking photos, and I'm mad because it's like, man, I didn't want my dog to be the example dog here. But as soon as I called her, she locked her brakes and broke off and turned around and came back. And my buddy's mouth just hit the floor. He's like, I didn't think you were going to get that dog back.
Yeah. Well,
and that's what training does.
I'll never forget chasing Gambel's quail a little bit further east of you. My young dog found the only steer on the entire section. And while he wasn't chasing, he was following and was intrigued with this big black dog that just wouldn't stay still to play with him. I could have used it back then. Definitely. Well, those are good.
It's very important to have good recall.
Yeah, I get it. Well, if you're going to leave us with one tiny bit of advice about hunting desert quail or training bird dogs, you've seen it all. Boil it down to 25 words or less. Rashawn Gordon, pro guide, pro dog trainer. What should we do?
One, please manage your coveys of quail that you hunt. This year, we're not going to have the reproduction, if we have any reproduction of quail this year.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to watch what you take out of a covey. Find new areas to hunt so you're not constantly pounding the covey every time you go out. Because if we don't take care of our quail resource, we're not going to have it.
Conservation words to live by from pro guide, pro trainer, Rashawn Gordon. Rashawn, if we want to learn more about what you're doing out there and how you might be able to help us, where do we go on the World Wide Web?
The best place is to find me is on Facebook. All right. Under Rashawn Gordon or Gordon's Gun Dogs.
There you go. And Rashawn, just for everybody's sake, is Rashawn. Rashawn.
That is correct.
Gordon or Gordon's Gun Dogs. Always fun to talk with you, my friend. Someday I'll be thawing out down there with you at the end of the season instead of up here. But until then, have a great year. Thanks so much for being part of the Upland Nation podcast.
And thanks again for having me, Scott.
You bet. Don't you go away. We've still got the Fix It segment coming up. And we're going to talk about, well, I'll just leave it a surprise. I teased it earlier in the podcast, but you know what I'm talking about. We're trying to maintain our sanity during this winter, especially with a dog in the house or more. After these words from MidwayUSA.com, always got ammo. I'm working on a bunch of stories that have to do with off-season activities, and one of them is stocking up now on those obscure gauges and shot sizes in your ammo box. Well, they've got it at MidwayUSA.com. I'm constantly finding some other type of ammo that I might have to use next season. So I'm laying it in now while they're fully stocked. Of course, if you're going to lay in a big ammo order there, well, sign up for their emails or text messaging and you'll get 10% off your next order. Make it a big one and make the savings worthwhile. It's all at MidwayUSA.com. And HighVisSights.com is where you learn how the head and your eyes relate to the muzzle and the bird. Watch the video. I like to think I made a pretty clear argument for it there, but it's all built around these light pipes. They are incredible. They are useful in that you don't have to worry about them. That's the point. You can change the colors out real easily. You can mount those light pipe sights easily, usually with just the magnets that come inside those racks, if you want to call it that. And they allow shooters to never lose the bead while on the target. Yeah, you want to add a bird to the bag more often? Take a look at HighVisSights.com. Well, I don't know what Mother Nature is trying to do to us around here. One day it's beautiful and sunny. The next day we get hail or rain, or did I mention the snow? A lot of dogs are spending a lot of time inside, and so are we, in our sweatpants and our slippers, waiting for the weather to change. The dogs are as bored as we are. At our house, Flick will go into the bathroom. We got a basket full of washcloths and another one full of towels, and he'll just take one out and waltz around with it. I should be grateful that's all he does with it, but at your house it might be gnawing on the table leg or just scratching at the door. Dogs need two things. Number one, exercise, so bundle up and go outside. But let's fix the inside problem just a little bit. There are so many things you can do with your dog indoors. And, whether it's steadiness, have him whoa during the commercial at a basketball game broadcast, retrieves, healing, all of those things will test your dog's mental capabilities, stimulate him just a little bit. And sometimes, a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there is all it takes to keep him from stealing another washcloth. That's our Fix It segment this week, brought to you by PointerShotguns.com. They probably got your gun in stock at one of the Pointer dealers. Go online to PointerShotguns.com. Take a look at that new FT12 semi-auto, and then take a look at all the other configurations from side-by-side to over and under in every gauge and that .410 caliber as well. A variety of finishes, from nickel to blued, case colored to Cerakote. Your first stop for an upgrade is at PointerShotguns.com. Well, thanks so much, George Gomez and Rashawn Gordon, for sharing your thoughts and your experiences this past season with us. I hope everybody who's listening learned something. I sure did. If you will please tell one person about the Upland Nation podcast, we will continue to grow. And if you would do me one more big favor and go to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating, all the better. Thank you to our sponsors who make this all possible: Purina Pro Plan Sport Dog Food, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, Trulock Choke Tubes, MidwayUSA.com, Pointer Shotguns, and High Viz Shooting Systems. Well, all this talk about going outside has got me ready. I'm pulling on some boots. Maybe I'll see you out there. I'm Scott Linden. Thanks for listening to the Upland Nation Podcast.